All right, this is the second part of the Irish NFL show's Week 4 previews. This preview show, as with all our weekly previews, is available as 4 separate podcasts covering all the games. We move on, Brian, now to Rams at Colts. I think the Colts can make it 2 in a row. They toughed one out last week with Gardner Minshew deputising for Richardson, who may or may not be back this weekend. It's still touch and go at time of recording, but the Colts still cautiously optimistic of getting good news there. Is that going to be enough to help them over the line against the Rams?
This was one of the ones that we touched on before we started recording. You're looking at, you're scratching your head going through the schedule over the course of the week, trying to pick out who you think are the eventual winners. And it's a bit of a crapshoot this week, but this one in particular is very difficult. I mean, the Rams started off with a great win in week 1, played really tough against the 49ers. And I was slightly disappointed with them on Monday night. I thought that was a game that was there for them. I know, like, the score probably doesn't even do it reflection because they were down by 10 and it was a garbage time touchdown for them. Defensively, they've only had 1 turnover in the 3 games. We expect a little bit more from the Rams defense. In particular, how they played week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks, who've since gone on to put up 30-odd points at home last week and another 30 in the second half against the Lions. It really is a difficult one. I think as well, we've seen their offense slow down slightly. I think Cooper Kupp gradually, it's like anything, after 4 or 5 weeks, it emerges how much you miss a particular player. Cooper Kupp not being there. You know, the rookies and the younger guys are playing well, but they need that experience to kind of navigate drives, you know, for Stafford to get the first downs. It's not so much about the big plays at times. The most important plays for me sometimes are those third and 3s, 3rd and 4s, where you go for a slam pass and you keep the chains moving. There was a few times last Monday where that didn't happen. I'll go Colts. I think it's a difficult one. They haven't beaten the Rams since 2009. That's, you know, in saying that, they don't play them every year, but dating back to 2009. And bearing in mind the Rams played Monday night on the road. Now it's another road game. Sometimes that can take a toll on you, playing so quickly again on the road. So I'll go Colts, but I'm not comfortable with it. I could see an argument as to why both sides will win. We have this a lot this week. Yeah, I'll lean Colts because they're at home.
Yeah, we were saying that even before we recorded, and I struggled with this one as well, I have to say. Watching that game on Monday night, we talked about how the Bengals toughed it out and how, you know, Joe Mixon showed up for them, Jamar Chase showed up for them when they needed the support for Burrow. The defense showed up in a big way. But all of that said, Rams were quite unlucky and also a little bit frustrating to watch at times in that game. Like, you had the scamper along the touchline by Tutu Atwell just puts a foot out of bounds on what otherwise would have been a touchdown, and then they just lay an egg in the red zone. That happened to them a couple of times, too many times on Monday night. They left points on the board. They left opportunities behind them. Atwell had another grab, you know, tough enough throw or tough enough reception to make it the back of the end zone, but when you feel that someone who aspires to the status that he aspires to probably should take in, they had to settle for a field goal and that. So they left behind enough points to win that game. Good and all as the Bengals were in toughing it out and in all the ways we said before. But I've seen enough from them so far this year to think they're going to be competitive in pretty much every game they play. I thought the Colts against the Ravens, you know, it's a good result for them with their backup QB, and don't get me wrong, but I thought they got the bounce of the ball there. You know, the Justin Tucker 61-yard field goal, his speciality just drops short. And they'd Matt Gay, on the other hand, kicks 4 50-yard plus field goals. That's not going to, or 5, was it 4 or 5? 4. That's not going to happen every week. You had bad defensive pass interference against the Colts, non-call when the Ravens were in position to win the game. Wouldn't have even gone to overtime if that had happened. So they rode their luck. I don't think the Rams are going to let them off the hook if that happens this week. Again, it's a coin toss game, but I'm going Rams on this one, so we'll end up on different sides of the equation there. We roll on now to arguably the game of the weekend, the Dolphins at Bills. Geez, I don't know what your feeling is on this one, Brian, but I found this really, really difficult to call. Dolphins lost 2 tight games in Buffalo last season, including that playoff game where they'd Skylar Thompson and a quarterback where they showed up a lot better than people expected them to, and, you know, probably exposed where the Bills were at that point in the season. Bills went out and got beaten quite badly at home by the Bengals then in the divisional round. But part of me just wants to see the Dolphins keep rolling, because as much as you want to see competitive games, and we all want to see, you know, games that are difficult to call and that are close and that go to the wire, and there's also something thrilling about seeing that knife cut through butter that the Dolphins were against the Broncos. Like, obviously they're not going to have it that easy every week, but just the weapons they have, the speed they have, the variety in the game of McDaniel, the way they trust Tua to do things like that, you know, no look shovel pass last week. It's Madden style football, and that annoys people who like to see tough defense and like to see something a little bit more traditional. But it's very, very entertaining. Now, the Bills, I think, similar to what we saw from the Patriots when the Patriots played the Dolphins, and yeah, they lost that game, but the Patriots found a way to take away the speed. You know, they have the secondary and they have the scheme to cause the Dolphins a little bit more trouble and to really put it up to Mike McDaniel to scheme his way out of it. They managed to do enough. And we don't talk enough about the Dolphins defense, to be fair. It's all about the showboat stuff and it's all about the speedsters they have on offense. But, you know, they can take care of business on the other side of the ball too. All of that said, I think the Bills are going to present a different problem for them. I think we're going to see the same sort of thing we saw from the Patriots, where they will take away that ability to take the top off the defense. They're not going to let that happen. They're going to make the Dolphins play in front of them. The Bills have an awful lot more punch to do some damage when they have the ball. I think it's very difficult to back up the sort of performance that the Dolphins had against the Broncos last week. To string two of those together, like they're not going to put up 700 yards of offense every week. Of course they're not. And that's certainly not going to happen against Buffalo. I think this is going to be a bit of a come to earth game, and I'm tipping the Bills in this one.
The Bills are still not getting any talk around the league. We spoke in the offseason around this would suit them, the way the Jets were getting all the exposure, and after last year they'd be glad of less attention. They've had less attention after 3 weeks. The week one game, they lost it in a manner they really should have won the game. I felt that even after that it was glossed over because of the way in which the Jets won and the Aaron Rodgers story. They did a number on the Raiders in week two. People didn't really get into that because they said that's a Raiders poor team. And we spoke on Tuesday about the Broncos results. We briefly called out the fact that the Bears were well beaten by the Chiefs. We didn't really get into the fact that 37-3 in Washington was the Bills last weekend. Like, that was a really comprehensive performance. Their defense, we touched on the Browns earlier. The Bills are second in terms of the least amount of points they've given up over the course of the 3 games. Their defense is playing lights out. And I'll give an example. The Giants can't seem to find a way to beat Dak Prescott. It's just one of those things. It's the nature of the league. Josh Allen is 9-1 against the Dolphins. His only defeat was last year. I think it was around week 40. It might have been this weekend last year, and he lost by 2 points. That was the famous game where the offense corner was losing his mind and starts crashing everything up in the box. But he's 9-1 against them. He averages 250 yards of offense, and he averages an average of 50 yards per game. He always plays well against them. He just seems to have their number. And with you, I think it'll be a high score affair. I think it's going to be something similar to what we saw last year. I think the Bills come out on top. I think it'll be a close one. I think they'll find a way to win at the end. I think we'll still come away reflecting on a really strong Dolphins performance, but I think the Bills will just about find a way to get over the line.
Steelers-Texans, Brian, is another interesting one. We talked a couple of weeks ago about how it was incredible that the Steelers had managed to put up -4 yards of offense in the fourth quarter against the Browns and yet still pull out the win because of the dominant performance of their defense, and TJ Watt in particular, himself and Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett, you know, between the three of them, a bloodbath battle royale to try and win Defensive Player of the Year. They both look streets ahead of pretty much anyone else you want to throw in that category already. But have the Steelers turned a corner offensively? We saw something a lot more frisky from them last week. Pickett seemed to be in a little bit more of a groove, and it seemed to be coming a little bit easier for them finally. Do you see that continuing against the Texans?
I do, to a certain extent, in terms of the offense. Yeah, it was his best. It was his best game statistically and numbers wise. It was his best game since he took over as the Steelers starter last week. But I still feel that their defense is what's obviously putting them in this position to win the games. And they're going up against CJ Stroud, and CJ Stroud had a great game. Don't get me wrong, last week he played really well, week 2 against the Colts. But they got mistakes in those games. They got mistakes last week by the Jags defense. They got mistakes by the Colts defense in week 2. Steelers haven't had a lot of mistakes. Like, with all due respect, they were comprehensively beaten week 1, but come week 2, they have 14 points off defense against the Browns. They were really good last weekend against the Raiders. This is a real tough ask. It'd be like this we're talking about measuring stick games. Be interested to see where CJ Stroud is on his development after this game. I think they'll hang in there, but I still think I think Steelers defensively, like Watt's got the most sacks this season, 6 sacks. You know, I can only imagine he'll get a few more on Sunday. I think Steelers defense will put them in a position to win. I think they'll win a close game, a low scoring affair for me. Steelers to win.
Yeah, again, I went back and forth on this one. Stroud's taken care of the ball really well, unlike Garoppolo last week. Garoppolo threw 3 picks. They had him in all sorts of trouble. Steelers were all over him, all in his face, all day long. And you'd slightly fear for Stroud up against that fearsome defense that they have. It's not just TJ Watt either. You know, they've got scary looking guys all over that defense. A classic Steelers steel curtain style affair. At the same time, they were gashed by Devontae Adams. I think Devontae finished with 172 yards.
Yeah.
Tank
two
Dell
touchdowns as well.
Yeah. Tank Dell had a great weekend last weekend for the Texans, so you'd fancy the Stroud Dell connection to come up trumps for them again, playing at home. I struggle to think that the Texans can hold them at home like you. I think the Texans have been a lot spicier than we expected them to be. D'Amico Ryans has done a really good job there. Stroud has been, like, if you looked at Stroud against Lawrence last week and you'd come down from Mars and somebody said to you, one of these guys is a rookie, the other guy is a generational talent who's been in the league 3 years, you would have said Stroud was the guy who'd been in the league 3 years and was coming on leaps and bounds. I mean, he has really looked the part. I think this is going to be a tight one. I think it's going to be a relatively low-scoring affair too. But I'd have the Steelers just about getting home, provided Pickett plays at the level he played last week, and that we don't see what we saw over the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah.